Welcome back to Tawanya Tells. As promised, I'm going to first go through the land acknowledgement and the video will follow shortly. I also want to acknowledge that I was mispronouncing one of the tribe's name and that is now corrected. Listen close. Let us take a moment to acknowledge the indigenous people who cultivated, nourished, and inhabited this land we call the United States of America, land that was forcibly taken from them. The state of Massachusetts, an Algonquin word meaning great hills, was inhabited by indigenous tribes Wampanoag, Mohegan, and Mohican. It is because of them we exist on these lands. Hey everyone, welcome back to Tawanya Tells. I'm your host Tawanya, and I'm here with my first guest, Tito Jackson. And I'm going to give a quick little introduction. So Tito is a Boston native, and he is former city councilor for District 7. That's covering neighborhoods Roxbury, parts of the South End, Fenway, and Dorchester. So if you're trying to wrap your brain around that, go back and look at episode 1. I have a map in there that breaks down all the neighborhoods of Boston. He also just recently had signed into law the Commission on Black Men and Boys, the status of Black men and boys. So we're certainly going to talk about that. And most recently, he is working on opening his own cannabis dispensary and lounge. So welcome, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. I'd like to thank my third grade teacher, Mrs. McIntosh, my mom, and the Almighty for having the opportunity to be here today.
This guy.
This is awesome. I'm glad I'm the first live guest. Hopefully I get to stay alive. I don't know what happened to the other guests, but we can talk about that later, and hopefully there's no self-incrimination. It's all good, yes.
All good, exactly. And so as I've also shared, right, the purpose of my podcast is really to talk about what's going on in the city of Boston within our Black community. So from our past, present, and future, I feel like you definitely exemplify a lot of that because, a point I did forget to mention is that Tito is also a community activist, has been there physically on the grounds and definitely behind the scenes and pushing forward issues around equity, inclusion, equality for our Black and Brown communities. So, I feel like we have lots we can talk about.
Yes.
But I want to start with the commission and tell us a little bit about that and it being signed into law.
Yeah, so in 2014, I was sitting with a friend of mine. His name is Horace Smalls. This brother didn't have any eggs, so we literally at his kitchen table eating bacon.
Okay.
Just bacon only. And so we were talking about what we wanted to do for Black History Month. So this is, I believe, in January of 2014. And so one of the things that we were kind of talking about is in the city of Boston, we have a women's commission,
right,
which has been very effective. And so things like having child care inside City Hall and physically in the building, it didn't used to exist. The Women's Commission called for that. Having a dashboard as to how much women make versus what men make, which is a good thing to have. And so there's this consistent running capture of data and then a policy vantage point to look at everything through. So hey, how does this policy affect women? Are we thinking about issues of child care and any of the disparities writ large in all of our policies? So what I was thinking is another group that has disparate and really bad outcomes in the city of Boston are Black men. So when you look at things like life expectancy, so in my old city council district, from Back Bay to Roxbury, there's a 33-year difference in life expectancy, right? So if you live in Back Bay, you live at 91.9. If you live in Roxbury, you live to 58.9. 58.9 is lower than the life expectancy of folks in Kabul.
Wow.
In Cambodia, right? And so you have all of these disparities that are happening inside the city where there's all these Harvard teaching hospitals and all this smart folks or whatever. So we looked at that. We looked at graduation rates, and we looking at incarceration rates and all of those things for Black men. And so if we are truly invested in making changes in the city of Boston, it is critical that we actually make changes in and around the issues for Black men and boys. So I proposed legislation to create a commission on the status of Black men and boys in the city of Boston.
Awesome.
But
no, not
what
the
had happened was the last mayor, Mayor Martin J. Walsh, so how the process works as a legislator, you put it forward in the city council, you vote on it, and then it goes to the mayor to be signed into law.
Okay.
We had a 13-0 vote, a unanimous vote in the city council.
Okay.
And Marty Walsh vetoed it.
Because
he said, so that made me, it's a little interesting. So I don't know if y'all had noticed, but I'm a large black man. And so I would assume I might know a couple of 1, 2, 3 about black men.
Right.
But he felt that since he was doing the My Brother's Keeper program, that he knew better and that this would be a distraction. What I find to be absolutely insulting is for someone who is not a black man to tell me and the 700 other brothers that we had assembled what a distraction would be. And so sadly, the program that he ran, although there were laudable efforts, the city of Boston never put money into that program. There's a gentleman named Thaddeus Miles.
Yes.
You know who that is. He put money out of his own pocket and from his organization, Mass Housing.
Yeah.
But multiple other organizations stroked checks. But the Mayor Walsh and his administration put no money into that organization. So thankfully, shout out to Julia Mejia, who's a city councilor.
And I did notice you definitely gave her credit.
Yeah. So Mayor Walsh and his administration forced the issue of adding Latinos to this commission. And my rebuttal was, why don't we create a commission for the status of Latino men and boys? Right. And we could also do the same for Asian men and boys. We have specific issues that could potentially miss out on things such as immigration, on things like language access, and other pieces that are unique to Latinos. So this piece on like making a hodgepodge cocktail of our issues has a tendency to pit us against one another and diminish us. So we pushed back, they forced it, and so we actually ended up adding that in. But then we added it in, and he still vetoed it. Right?
Can't make up his mind.
No, you can't. And the thing is, this also, so I'll shout out to Julia Mejia for taking this legislation, keeping a promise that she made to be Ron Bell and other black men to move this forward. She advanced it forward, and thankfully we had Mayor Kim Janey sign it into law.
Awesome.
And I guess one of the last pieces I'll say here is that this speaks about the issue of procurement, which is the contracts that the city uses to buy things. So in Boston, we spend about $670 million a year in kind of discretionary funds to buy stuff. This can be services like cleaning the streets, like snow removal, any of these things. So under Mayor Walsh, about $2.1 billion was spent.
Okay.
And less than 1% went to black-owned businesses. Right? And so what I like to say, a budget is a value statement.
Correct.
Right, so you can't tell me that you value something and you put no financial resources into it.
You always have to put the money there.
Right, so that's the piece that is, I think, really problematic. And so hopefully now that we have this commission, there will be appointees. There's 21 appointees onto the commission, and then the conversation is how do we structure it so that all of the things that we do policy-wise go through a lens of what is it, how equitable is it to black folks as well as in particular black men.
Right. That's awesome. This sounds extremely major and beneficial, of course, not only for the city of Boston, but specifically our black men. As a mother of 2 sons, that is going to be very important to me and to them. So what would you say to younger people who they kind of hear, they're knowing a little bit of it, like, what is this supposed to mean to them? Why should they care?
Brothers, understand that we haven't forgotten about you.
Yeah.
But what I would say is, we need you. And we are going to be the ones that save each other. No one's coming to save us. When you get up in the morning, and this the realest time that I I have and we all have in the day is when you walk into the bathroom and you got all that nice accoutrement under your eyes and on the side of your lips, all that.
Yeah.
That's the real you. We need your voice. We need your presence. And we need your story and your narrative. And we want to make sure that we validate the things that are real for you. We know in the city of Boston, black men are disproportionately pulled over by the police. We know in the city of Boston, black men disproportionately drop out of the Boston public schools. We know, so these are just realities that happen. And so the piece has to be not blaming these individual brothers, but if there is a group, so in healthcare, when there's issues of pre-existing conditions, what are we doing in COVID-19 right now with individuals who have a pre-existing condition? We're giving them a booster shot. We're giving them extra. Right?
Absolutely.
So we're saying, oh, you know what? We heard, we know some things are popping off for you or whatever, but we're going to make sure that you're okay. And so we're going to give you extra medicine. So the thing has to be thought about here is, one, how do we deal with starting literally at birth, early education? How do we deal with the maternal issues that black women have? Too bad, sadly, black women die at a disproportionate rate during childbirth in a quote-unquote first world country, which is absolutely ridiculous. How do we deal with issues of child care and rearing? In many countries, I have a friend who is from Sweden, you get a couple of years to actually bond with your child.
Imagine that. Oh my goodness.
Right? And we don't, because the interesting thing is if you're rich, right?
Oh, yeah.
She's staying at home with your child. That's such a good thing.
Or
he's staying at home. But when it comes to this side, if you're poor, get to work and those type of pieces. Also paternity leave, right? How black men are able to connect with their sons as well as daughters. One of the pieces that we also have to look at is policy. We live in a nation where Section 8 is one of our largest housing programs. But Section 8 is the enemy of the black family. Why do I say that? Section 8 has a requirement that if you are a woman who is on a Section 8 voucher, which allows for you to get affordable housing, subsidized housing, you are not allowed to have a man who is not related to you over the age of 18 on the lease. So I only took intro to biology. I can't. There's only a couple of ways we know how babies are born, right?
Fair.
And so what you essentially have done is you said that this poor woman is not allowed to have a traditional family structure.
And additional income.
Right?
That's the key.
Right? And so, in additional income, right? So again, in a city where you need 80 grand to be single and live alone, right? How do you deal with $2,800, which is the $2,800 is your average 2-bedroom, and remember that's first, last, and security that you need to actually move in, right? How do you deal with that with one income? So you now are putting this person in a situation where if her partner decides to live with her, it is not only optimal. You're literally asking her to decide on housing, or being with the partner, right? And so you now have these situations where if he does live there, it is in a really difficult situation. He can't be on the lease. And I'm not, we love, as my dad would say, that's what love does to people. Sometimes we're good, and sometimes we're not good. So and so there's a bunch of structural issues. And then I guess I would just say simply to young brothers, there is so much for you brothers to do, to be, and to see. I know that it is tough. I've gone through a lot. But when it comes to a world where you guys are digital natives, you guys open the phone, when you buy a phone, y'all not looking at the booklet that comes along with it, you just turn it on. You guys are able to do things like be influencers and take all the cool stuff that you do online and create content, and potentially even a career.
Right.
And I also want to apologize to you, brothers. I used to make fun of people who sat overnight on Newberry Street to get sneakers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I take all that back now.
Why?
Because there is a whole industry that has been created around sneakers and the secondary market in sneakers.
Okay. Yeah.
And so these cats are making. There was a guy I met. He had $115,000 sneakers to it.
I couldn't
Right?
even imagine.
So, so
I ain't into sneakers like that.
I don't, but there's a whole marketplace. There's a website called StockX, which is basically the stock exchange for sneakers. Right? So so there's this innovation that is led by black people, and in particular black men, right? And so there's something to be said, and women in this case, about valuing who you are, what you are, and the talents that you bring to the table.
I love it. Thank you for breaking it down like that. One of the things I wanted to speak to, though, is also how, you are out here in the community, and that's the piece I really want to focus on, because in my last episode, I did a tribute to my dad, and I really wanted to focus on how when he encountered, racism and discrimination, the decisions he made around rectifying that to make a path better and easier for his children and for those that were going to be coming up after him. That's how I see a lot of the work that you're doing, and this is what this commission will also do, right? It's helping to make that path better and easier for our black men in the case of the commission, but just your work overall and your commitment to the city has been definitely about that. Where did that come from? Where did that start for you?
So for me, it started from my mom and dad.
Stay tuned for my next video.